Welcome to another episode of Behind the Shield podcast. Today we have a great guest, Eric Beasley, and he's going to just real quickly describe who you are, what you're about today, and why you think you're on the podcast today.
Yeah, so I'm Eric. I work at Earthling Security. I'm the director of compliance and engineering. So Earthling is at 3PAO, and we provide managed services for company CSPs that are seeking like FedRAMP authorization. Um, I have kind of two hats at the moment. I'm running both compliance and engineering. So a lot of that's kind of the crossover between the you know your security controls and the automation related to it. Yeah, I've been doing FedRAMP for about 8 years or so at this point. Before that, I did FISMA. Before that, I was a sysadmin. Um, and here I am. And I think I'm
Oh,
here because Gary wanted somebody entertaining on a show. So
there you go. I want to be able to have somebody who can laugh at my bad jokes is what I'm really looking for. So I'm already kidding. No, it sounds to me, doing compliance and engineering sounds to me like you're in the right space with this whole new GRC engineering perspective. You're really integrating automations into the compliance efforts. I'm a systems engineer. And I think of it really GRC engineering as a part of systems engineering. If you design your overall system properly, you integrate all these nice, fine components into your compliance solution as well. I personally, this is my personal opinion. I'd love to get your opinion on it. I think most of the reason why people haven't integrated or automated this stuff here up to this point is because it really wasn't a requirement until really like now, because everything was manual and screen captures. I know a lot of people are kind of giving some people bad news or bad press over that, but that's just what the requirements were, and not only from a um, kind of requirements from the auditors, but that's what they were required to do based off of their accrediting bodies.
yeah.
So we really moved from that space now into more automation, but in a lot of cases, and this is where is people are now going to more of the automation, and the accreditors are allowing and the auditors are allowing you to deliver that automated solutions. I'd love to get just a feel for how you feel about that and what you've seen.
Well, so you bring up probably the most important part of this discussion, Gary, is that what was the PMO like 2 years ago?
Oh, right.
Like
Hmm.
everybody forgets that. Like we have to put this in context when we talk about like automation, GRC engineering. Okay. I couldn't imagine going to the PMO 6 years ago and being like, here's a snippet of code from GitHub. This is how I'm fulfilling file integrity monitoring. Okay.
Hmm.
The reviewers from 6 years ago would have lost it on you. And you would have had nasty grab. I mean, assuming they ever got to that after their hour-and-a-half boundary diagram review, they're complaining about how big your pictures are and why does this say FIPS instead of FIPS 140-2? That nonsense. Like the entire FedRAMP program has shifted in the last 2 years to the point where now automation is acceptable
Right.
and where it's in fact it's being encouraged and incentivized through the 20x program. And so like when we have these conversations, we have to start with we took screenshots and read SSPs and manually reviewed stuff because that was what the requirement was.
Correct.
That doesn't mean that it was the right or wrong answer. Listen, I've spent plenty of time working in the federal government and like I could tell you about $5 million broom closets because
Right.
that's
Right.
that's
Because that's
how
what
the
the
government.
requirement was to have a closet right outside to hold your brooms. Right.
Yes, I brooms and mops, and I made profuse use of them, right? And so,
Right.
we have to keep that in mind. I think that, so when we're talking about automation, what we really just need to remember is that the PMO had different rules, and now the PMO has decided to actually be somebody who who they are. I mean, look, I didn't know who the PMO was until Waterman took over, like what, 2 years ago.
Right.
If you asked me what that person's name was, I could not tell you. I could
Right.
not. I couldn't tell you what they looked like. I couldn't tell you if they had cool glasses or not. Nothing. I can tell you all of that about the current PMO. And so,
Which memes I like, which ones they didn't like, kind of thing.
yeah, even as number two talks about how great the memes are when you work at
Right.
FedRAMP because me and Pramify like to make fun of them.
Right.
So, we like this entire environment has like really changed, and I think that's I think that people are pushing on this like GRC engineering thing. I think that it's the right direction, but I think that people are diving way too hard into this, and I think that they are overcomplicating a lot of like simple solutions. And I know that's probably like the I'm like the only person who believes this, I think sometimes. Um, I see I look at it because I'm a sysadmin, so of course everything is solved with a bash script, right? Just like
Absolutely.
if you're
Right.
a carpenter, you solve everything with a hammer. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
solve it with bash, okay? Um, I like automation. I like things that are like moving forward. I like having less work to do, just
Yep.
like every
Mm-hmm.
sysadmin does, right? Um,
We're not lazy. We're just
we're
trying to find better
efficient.
ways to do things more efficiently, right?
Yes, we're just efficient. I just
Yep.
want to be like I always, I always make the jokes like I want to spend more time with my chickens than I do, reviewing SSPs. Like
Right. Mm-hmm.
really what it comes down to, right? But I look at, okay, I want the automation to be something that is like worth my time. There is a level of like, how much time does it take me and my engineers in order to implement this like automation? And then how much time does that save me over the course of a year?
Right.
Right? How reusable is that, right? Because I'm a big I know that y'all are an MSSP too. I'm
Yep.
sure y'all love it when like one of your clients says, "Hey, can you do a thing for me?" and then repeat that across all of your clients,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
That's the
That's the way it's
efficiency.
done. Right.
Well,
Exactly.
and that's the efficiency that people get with going with
Mm-hmm.
an MSP. So they don't have one person doing a task one time and having to be paid full time to do that.
Yep.
I get paid by a bunch of people to do something once and then repeat across
And then
environments.
leverage it all the way across.
Yes.
One of the things that really so we manage, I don't know, 20, 25 different systems in the FedRAMP space,
Mhm.
and so that means we would go through audits just like our customers were, right? So we would
Yep.
go through that many audits every single year, and we're still doing that, right?
Of course.
Um, you know, one of the areas that used to frustrate me is when they would ask you to go into your Active Directory, right, and go
Mhm.
into the little area to pull down the different configurations. So in one area they would say, "Show me this," and so you'd go in there, you'd show them that, and then you would say, "Show me this," and then you could show them that. But it's in a different part of the interview because it's a different part of the
Uh,
uh,
yeah, it's
of
a
the
different
questions,
control.
right?
Yep.
So right, so I was like, so how about I just run this script that we wrote that we use to make sure that we're
Mhm.
compliant, right? And then we can spit out all that into one big table that will show you all that is actually being pulled from that system, and then it's also, you'll save time not having to ask the same different questions around Active Directory.
Yeah.
And I showed the auditors, and they're like, "No, we just can't do that. We have to get screenshots of the individual places inside of the GPOs so that when the IG reviews it, they'll know what they're looking at because they don't understand this table,
XML
right?
output.
XML output or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So we were actually doing it with just table output, like a regular standard table, ASCII table, right? So
Yes.
but
But
they still couldn't get their head wrapped around it, but here again, it wasn't their fault because that's what the expectations of their accreditor was, and that was what their expectations of, the person reviewing the packages, were as well.
so I mean,
Automation is key, and it's the only way we can scale, to be able to scale across that many different solutions,
well,
so
Gary, I'm going to talk there's two problems in this whole scenario, okay?
Yep.
And so the first problem is you're probably talking about an auditor doing the AC and IA, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Any auditor that is
SC as well by what
okay,
'cause of the encryption, right?
yeah.
So
Well, and see, any auditor that is worth their salt knows enough about these controls that you're supposed to be auditing. They should be able to say, okay, we're gonna go into Active Directory, and here's everything that I need out of Active Directory. Like, one thing, GRC engineers like making fun of people that have memorized security controls, but
Yep.
guess what? When
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
memorized them, I know, hey, you're showing me Active Directory. I know all of the controls that I need to get information out of your Active Directory for. So
Right.
I go there one time, I capture everything that I need, and then we're done. You know,
Yeah.
you so there's
Yeah.
an audit management issue here too. Like the audit, a lot of the three PAOs, like I have very, very mixed results with them, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes you get teams that are experienced and they know what they're doing. Sometimes you don't, and it's a very like mixed bag. With all of my clients, it's a very mixed bag of which like who shows up that year in a lot of ways, right? And so I think the first problem is just having the auditors that No, AC and IA go together. That's the same interview because it's the same information sources. Like,
But when they wrote NIST 853, it was never designed to be control by control, right? It
mhm,
was really we have these things we call themes that we
yeah,
do. It's sort of the same way I think I was hearing you say. So Active Directory covers these controls. And so when I go to
mhm,
engineer this, I want to make sure it covers these controls. So
yes.
let me talk to you about my themes, and then I can show you how we're meeting the spirit of all those individual controls.
Yeah, like, look, if you're gonna have to copy paste, we use Octa 97 times into your SSP. You should
Exactly,
only have to show it to
exactly.
your auditor once, right?
Right, right, but that's not ultimately how it ended up, and that I think that's
No.
where, to me, the beauty of where the 20X is going, right? And the 20X
Mhm.
is really taking it down to that level to where you can pull that bits of information out, and then do yourself a red, yellow, green
Yeah.
perspective. Hopefully, they're all green, but if they're not, then every now and then you're going to get a red or a yellow in there, right?
But
If you
but
do it over time, then that's okay as well, right?
yeah. And see, and I like the scripts. I like pulling the information out automatically. Me
Hmm.
as an auditor, I still want to see that, like, you're actually running this on production. Like, look,
Ah,
I've been an auditor and a CS. I work
yep.
on both sides regularly, right? I have
Hmm.
seen environments where, for example, they they won't do like web application scanning in their production environment. Okay. So me as an auditor, I'm not just going to take like a trust me, bro, like these environments are identical. I need to be able to see that. And
Hmm.
I like
Hmm.
having this, like, if you can put a hash value on it, then that's great. I'd rather see a SHA-1, but guess what? Not everybody seems to be able to do that for me.
Right. Well,
So
yeah, that can get a little hard, but I tell you that not testing in your production environment to me is okay if you have a pipeline that leads
yes.
into your production environment that pretty much is identical to what you're testing
Mhm.
on. So you have to kind of prove that piece as well. So you need to do some testing on the pipeline as well.
Exactly. And
Um,
see, and that's like, how do I test the pipeline between essentially like because most FedRAMP CSPs, they have their commercial cloud, and then
yep.
that pipes into their government cloud, right? And so how exactly do I test in some sort of automagical method? Like, this could be any cloud going
Hmm.
into another cloud, which then goes into a production environment. Like, how do I like how do I hook a script in to cover all three of those things? Like, sometimes I just need to see it like manually too. Um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
I want to minimize what I have to review manually. I don't want to have to sit here and take 19 screenshots of all your S3 buckets to see they're encrypted, right?
Right.
There's a perfect example of where automation is king, right? Um,
And so, I don't know which cloud services that you guys leverage, but we mostly leverage AWS. And the
mhm,
beauty with AWS is they have these great tools inside of AWS, so you can quickly set up your minimum assessment scope, right?
yeah,
Or the overall boundary scope as well in the Red 5 side. Yeah, so it's very easy to say it covers these accounts, and this
mhm,
is what's inside of each of those accounts. These services, these lambdas, these containers, these EC2s, so
yeah,
forth and so on, right? So it's very easy to do that. So you can start to categorize them in that way. So that way you're covering your scope, and that
oh
way
yeah.
you're also knowing, that you're covering all of the S3 buckets or all the EC2s that are in there. You're not hiding anything as
Yeah.
well.
I mean,
So
look, tagging is great for that. That's what
yep.
we set that up. It's great. We interface that with Qualys. That's kind of our preferred vuln scanner. And so I love the tagging for that, especially because it gives me visibility into every one of my client VPCs. Now I have mostly AWS. I have like a couple of outliers that are in Azure. But luckily I have like a really good Azure engineer. So Azure was a big pain point for a long time. But once we got somebody that really knew what they were doing, Azure became just as easy as AWS. Like, it's this old, when people come to me and they're like, I get this all the time. Where should we put our SaaS? Should we put it in
Hmm.
Azure or AWS or GCP? And I tell them, whichever one your engineers know the best.
That's a fact. That's kind of what we say as well. We just happen to know AWS the best. As a matter of
Yep.
fact, a lot of our larger customers, um, most of their backplanes that we build are in AWS, but then their workloads sometimes are in Azure or they're in GCP.
Oh yeah.
And we now have one that's actually in Oracle as well. And
Oh.
so the major backplane, even maybe the major part of their application is in AWS, but they still have workloads in all these
Mhm.
different clouds. So our we have connections to all of them now.
Well,
So
that's the nice thing about, FedRAMP, like audit once, like reuse many times. So
yep. Hmm.
if Oracle Cloud does something better than AWS, like guess what? Make your account, hook it in, everybody's happy.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's where the IaaS providers I think are really doing it right. And I often talk about it's much easier to do this whole 20x thing in a cloud native world because it's very easy to get the metadata that you need in the to be able to check because it's automatically being produced throughout the entire environment. So
Yeah.
it's fairly simple to write the code to pull the right thing
Mhm.
out, so you can then check to whether or not it's meets the criteria of being acceptable.
I mean,
So
quite frankly, it's the only way to do 20x. That's to me, that's why 20x is never going to hit the IAS or the pass level. It can't.
right, it's gonna be
You
hard.
know, like the whole point of 20x is to use cloud native architecture and cloud native features. And when you are the cloud, like not you can't eat your own dog food for everything. So
It's gonna be tough. I'm gonna like to see how the FedRAMP PMO handles some of these folks who provide different types of IaaS capabilities as well, because there's
Mhm.
several companies out there. We actually support a couple of them as well that
Yeah.
don't are not they're not on one of the major cloud providers. They have their own solution that they have, and then they bring in applications into their environment. So
Yeah.
I'm watching with beady eyes and to figure out what and how he's going to attempt to do that with those folks.
Because 100 like 20x for a SaaS makes perfect sense because look, like
Hmm.
Gary, you and I could sit down and we could vibe code our way into a web app using like AWS only tools, but
Yep.
for the end of the day, if
Yep.
we really wanted to, right?
Hmm.
We have our logging, you have your scans, you have your alerts, you have all of that's just built into the cloud, and that's what 20x wants us to use.
Right.
Um, the big unsolved question that I have been sitting on for a long time is what happens if is 20x going to break out of that SaaS world, or is that going to remain like or is it going to just stay there? Like,
Right.
how are you going to modernize Rev 5 for physical security? Because none of the KSIs address the physical layer at all.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think that there's a government appetite for hosting workloads in any old data center. Like I just don't see that happening in all of my years of sysadmining of I can't like having to map out data centers in basement mazes and walk around at 3 a.m. God knows how many times.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, I listen. And then of course you're mapping something. You're not supposed to have a map, so you end up basically just counting steps. Like, I mean, it's
Right?
wild, right?
Mhm,
Wild
mhm.
world that we live in sometimes. But I just don't see how like how are you gonna do a KSI on like you know your HVAC controls. Like, how are you going to build that in scope? Every FedRAMP data center walkthrough that I've been through, it's like it's an Equinix data center that's essentially providing
Yep.
FISMA high controls, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And then there's a cage, and that cage is the physical boundary for where the data center is being hosted. Um,
Right, right. So
how do
so
you
maybe he
like?
comes up with some, IaaS specific controls. I don't know because, I
Mhm,
mean, nowadays, most of this stuff can be reported digitally anyway, right? Well, you plug in IoT, right? IoT is everywhere now.
mhm.
So you could pull a lot of this information with IoT, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to do it. And so there's gonna have to be some considerations on how can they automate this stuff in a way that then makes sense to, the average
Well,
person downloading the information
I'm going to play
make
devil's
judgment.
advocate on that one though,
Yeah.
Gary. My
Mhm.
my concern there is what you'd be introducing a whole new hardware layer of vulnerabilities, which can be very catastrophic. Like, like this is where that whole like value add conversation comes in. Like, what's the value of monitoring the humidity of my racks automatically versus the risk of that like thermostat being compromised as part of some other like greater like like malware
Mhm.
campaign, SCADA device like compromise. So at what point does the benefits of knowing the humidity outweigh the security risks from that physical device?
I, I'm not an IoT expert, and by no
Mhm.
means will I ever will I ever say that I'm a physical security expert. But I will say there are a lot of people remote monitoring data centers today, right?
Oh yeah,
And maybe
of course
it's
they are.
maybe it's a different methodology, maybe it's just a different viewpoint. Maybe it's not actually collected on the same platform. There's another way to actually go about doing that. Maybe
Mhm,
it's a whole separate thing by itself.
mhm.
So I don't have any real answers there other than I think it's possible. Now,
Oh, it can be done. It's just it's again it's that like weighing, because what I always go back to, Gary, is like think about the original like big malware campaign,
mhm,
Stuxnet. Stuxnet
right,
was the big
mhm,
one. That's what put cyberspace on the geopolitical map,
right,
and we destroyed physical devices with thumb drives dropped in a parking lot,
right,
um,
right.
off network, and we destroyed them 9 months after the payload was
Yeah.
delivered.
Here again, I don't really have an answer to
Yeah.
that, and because it's not my specialty area. Guess what? I downloaded all that data from my data center days to where I don't have to think about it anymore because I outsource all that, and I just trust that they're doing the right thing, and I
Mhm.
watch their certifications, and that's where my mind stays,
Of course.
unfortunately, and I'm not sure if I could actually get my head back wrapped around that because I'm so used to pushing these buttons nowadays that it makes my life easier, if
I
that
don't know.
makes sense what
Look,
I'm trying to say, you
Gary,
know?
look, I still play like Star Fox 64 every once in a while, and like Mario, like, I like knowing your roots. And so I always try to keep my data center knowledge there. And like, my sysadmin days, like right up front. It's, you know, I,
I think I dropped that once I started, wearing shorts every day, to work, right? So,
Wait, people wear pants anymore? I mean,
okay, good, you're a shorts guy too, right?
oh,
That's
listen,
that's
look, I spent it's like 95 degrees here in Maryland right now. Like I spent all morning like working outside, so I'm not. No, like I assure you, there was no pants were involved in this.
So we have a 7,500 square foot building here in Western North Carolina. This is where we
Mhm,
run our cybersecurity center out of. This is where our security operations center runs from. This is where most of our engineers work out of, and
mhm,
many of our cloud operations people too. When we first built this, I had I want to say 18 rack data center in the back part of the building. And, I had this huge air conditioner about the size of an entire wall. When they would ever come on, the lights would dim in the
mhm.
county, right? But, over the last 5 or 6 years, and I think it was last year, matter of fact, I think we probably did a little small meme on it. When do you know your data center transformation is complete? When the guys who run the SOC, which is actually attached to the data center, are asking where the heat button is as opposed to
Yes,
can you turn the
yes.
air conditioner up some more? And fortunately, my secondary, air conditioner was a heat pump, so it had heating on the other side of it. So
Oh,
the coldest days in the winter, the two systems that I think I have remaining, actually, I made a mandate now where I think there's one left with one VM on it that controls certain parts of our building that I can't
mhm.
quite get into the cloud yet, but it still spits out 3,500 watts of power every day. So we did have an air conditioner go out
Oh
this
yeah.
summer, or this spring, and it was only 70 degrees outside, but yet my computer area was getting up to about 85 or 90 degrees
Ooh.
just with one server. So with all those servers gone, that enabled us to downgrade our air conditioner, downgrade our whole data center to
Mhm.
now, like I said, it's like one working server in there as well, one
Oh man.
working piece of hardware, and
I,
everything else is virtual. So when I say I downloaded that stuff, I meant it. I mean,
oh,
I
it's all
kicked it
done.
out the door. Matter of fact, I took the racks and give them to like the local community college or something,
Oh, that's
because even the hardware too.
mhm.
So
No,
yeah.
that's great. Honestly, it's great. Like one of all the community colleges, because I'm in Maryland, I'm in Frederick County, and all of our community colleges, they have like full on like $500,000 racks to do like
Hmm.
like for their computer science and like cybersecurity services.
Right.
Big fan of like those programs. I'm like I've talked to a couple of professors on occasion about like how to like develop that out and make and basically teach people like more like relevant cybersecurity like skills versus kind of what they're teaching academically. So that's the right spot to do it. The only sad thing is you don't get your 100% efficiency in the winter because all the waste heat makes the building warmer. So you get like that's the only time that
I have to
computers are
have the
ever
heat pump
100%
turned on during
efficient.
the wintertime. I
Yeah,
have to get
see,
the heat pump turned on during the
that's the really
wintertime.
sad part.
It
Look,
is.
I have to heat my space with propane, so 'cause
Oh, there
it's
you go.
yeah, but I get it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I'm always I like. Well, one thing right now, Earthlings actually, we are working with a new IAS provider that's trying to break into the FedRAMP market. So I've had it all in the mind recently because I'm trying to like, essentially we're involved in like go-to-market efforts with them, and
Yep.
it's like,
Yep.
remembering like, all right, like, wait, which switch has 64 ports? Like, and I'm like remembering all of my subnetting and like, just making sure that it's all built. And I'm like, okay, like can I put these wires together, or should I pay somebody else to do it?
I mean, you just can't say, Terraform, create me a subnet that has this IP range, and it doesn't create it for you. I
Look,
always used to like to tell. I used to like to tell this story. So, Jason Shropshire, who's our COO, him and I met at Lowe's. I was the IT security architect, and he was mainly focused on delivering identity management stuff.
okay.
And one of the biggest projects that we worked on was help implement a large portal for all of the users at Lowe's, because they really only had corporate accounts, which was a town of 10,000 people or so. And they didn't have accounts for all of their seasonal employees or anything like that. And so that's 250,000 people that they would go up and down, left and right with those services. Well, one of the things that we built was this large portal, which was active, so a whole bunch of load balancers, whole bunch of hardware components. And it took us about 3 months or so to get all that hardware components put into place before we could actually put our software in to start being able to use it inside the system, because we had to have all that load balancing up front. Nowadays, it's basically give me an ALB, and this is where my destination port is. And oh yeah, by the way, I want to cert and also want to do my DNS at the same time. And the code's like this long compared to how long it used to take us to purchase it, get it in place, and then figure out how to manage that hardware as well. So the whole cloud perspective to me, and using somebody else's hardware is high on my list nowadays.
Oh, look, 100%. Trust me. I have built routers. I've built Cisco routers. I've managed, multiple networks of God knows, like old operating systems, new operating systems. I like the ease and simplicity of the cloud, but I also always remember in the back of my head that fundamentally that cloud is still just that exact same data center that I used to work in. Like somebody has to manage it. Somebody,
Agreed.
like I can't tell Claude like replace this hard drive and then it sends
Can't.
out a little like
It doesn't
mini
do it
robot.
automatically
Yeah.
for you.
It's not the beginning scene of Hackers where you have little robot arms fighting over
Right.
which show to play on this TV station.
Right.
Like we're not there yet. Hopefully we'll never be there.
Right.
And so we have to like that is still, I with my team, I have like 3 juniors right on my team. I have a senior person on the team. It's got about the same experience me. Then I have 3 juniors. One of them was an intern that we brought on, and the other 2 were like, one was a new hire, one was a transfer from inside the company. And I try to make sure that I teach them all of these sorts of things, like these, like the let's call them like IT fundamentals. Like this is the data center, these are switches, these are routers. Like I told them like I want you all to start with like getting Cloud Plus, and then after that I want you to go get like Net Plus so that you understand like how does the internet work.
I tell you, that's from an education standpoint. I mean, that's kind of what we do here as well. We work with the local community college, and then we also work with the several of the universities in the region to bring on interns. And then I sat on the board for the computer information science program up at Appalachian State, and then Jason sits on the board here at the local community college. That's about where we get most of our security operations center analysts from, is from the community college. And then we intern them for about 3 to 6 months. And if they work out, they work out. We hire them, we bring on full time, and we put them on third shift weekends. initially, and then the folks that we or who are our advisors or our engineers, we either get them through computer science or the CIS programs out of the local universities here. We have quite a few of them. That's one of the beauties about being here in North Carolina is the education system for higher education is
Yeah.
very, very good.
Yeah, because you're out in that like that tech triangle. Like I swear, like half the
No, we're in the nowhere man's land. We're in the mountains.
oh
We're in the
oh you're
mountains of North Carolina, so I'm not in the Raleigh area or anything like that. No, we're
oh
in,
geez. Oh,
yeah, so
like you're at Dollywood. That's what you're
I'm
telling me.
to be honest with you, we're kinda close to Dollywood, that's
Yeah.
a lot of folks go there, or we're just north of Asheville. We're near Boone,
Mhm.
North Carolina.
Yep. Okay.
That's where Appalachia State is. We're actually in Wilkes County, which
Mhm.
is, kind of in the
Yeah.
middle of
Which
nowhere,
which
western
is
North
really
Carolina.
it was just actually really cool, Gary, because if you think about it, like most like especially most CSPs and especially people in the FedRAMP space are not that like localized. Like
Mm-mm.
you've been able to take like here's my little corner of like of the Appalachian Mountains and like
Yep.
build out a FedRAMP program with it. Versus when you think about it, like I mean when I like in all of my time as an auditor working for 3 PAOs, s- we live everywhere. um,
Yeah. Right.
like
It's amazing because what I always like to say is have laptop will travel, right? Because
mhm,
if we can get internet connection, we can get where we need to get to.
yeah,
Um, and I'm sure you're the exact same way, whether you're doing auditing or whether you're doing the engineering side or you're doing the actual,
yeah.
cloud operations side. So
Mhm.
let me
Oh yeah, of
shift this to topic if you don't mind over to
course,
cloud operations in this new space. I mean, how do you
mhm,
feel about the continuous operations and continuous monitoring, continuous management, continuous auditing, in this new kind of regime space? Let's just keep ourselves focused on the newer space as
of
opposed
course.
to where we currently are, if that's okay with
Yeah.
you.
No,
So,
of course.
yeah.
So I like it. I have a lot of notes about it though that I'll say. So one thing that drives me nuts personally is, especially when I'm auditing somebody, um, because this is based on a true story. Obviously, it's always based on a true story.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
Um, I had a client that had a web application scanner set up on like monthly scan, just like you normally would when you're
Yep.
doing your POAMs, your Kanban, right? The problem is that the scanner was, by all accounts, running. It was updating the scan date, but it wasn't actually scanning the web app.
Okay.
So all the automation was in place, but there was never like the scanner didn't send an affirmative message saying scan complete and validate that it actually ran the right way, right?
Hmm.
So one thing that I will stress if you
No findings again this month. We're doing great.
and see and that's the problem. Like you assume you just make that assumption because of course like you're going to take out your info findings,
Right,
like
right.
the
Mhm.
nonsense ones, right? You filter all those out, right?
Yep.
I'm interested in real findings. Tell me I got an SQL injection. Tell me where it is and
Mhm,
I'll fix it. Okay.
mhm.
Um, and so one thing that I always look for whenever I'm watching somebody's fancy tool or like they have a video on like LinkedIn, they're talking about it. I'm not just looking for telemetry about a failed scan, a failed check. I'm looking at telemetry for a good check, right?
Mhm.
Just like think about like an HTTP request, right? If it's bad, I get a 404 error. If it's good, I get a 200 response, but I don't see the 200 response. And one thing I've been hammering with my engineers is if we make an automated script, I want it to report a value back that we can track saying, I ran this check, value is good. So like, if it's a good, return 1. If it's bad, return value 2. That's kind of how we're designing everything. That's one of my concerns with a lot of the automation, a lot of the telemetry is again, from an auditor perspective, I need to see that it's actually running. And
Right.
so I need that HTTP 200 response in your tools. Okay. Um, Otherwise, how do I exactly trust the results? What if something got stuck on a loop? We know that sometimes scripts don't run properly. Maybe cron tab got screwed up. Like who knows, right? There's
They're not perfect? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I mean, God forbid, like something doesn't work. Like literally, it not being perfect is why we have jobs, Gary. So,
Exactly. No, that's
like,
yeah, exactly. You
you
mean that
know,
script's not gonna run perfectly every single time it runs? That's exactly what I thought it did, so
no, and it does for the most part, it does, and that's what you
yeah.
build in your checks. We build in,
Mhm.
and that's where I think that's where this kind of goes into the like. I want to automate what makes sense to automate, but I also want a human in the loop.
Yes.
And so when I have, when my automation scripts like well, I'll give you an example. One something that we just recently built was essentially it's it's an automation script that we run inside of like AWS SSM to basically validate that our security tools are running.
Hmm.
Okay. Initially we had it, but it didn't give us a positive like check back, didn't give us that one value when everything was kosher. Um, and it wasn't running often enough. This was like we did a CPIR test, and this is one of the results that we came back with was this isn't checking in frequently enough. We need to have it check in more. And of
Yep.
course, it was let's evaluate what is the like. Is this going to cost more because of AWS billing? We did it. We evaluated. Is this the right way to do it? Is it really going to like bog down our systems if we run this every 5 minutes, for example? Because some real time monitoring can do that.
Yes.
We're
Hmm.
talking like think about like Wazoo's like FIM feature, right? If you
Oh
try to
yeah.
real time monitor stuff, you're gonna eat up processor
You can't
cycles.
you
And
can't even use the systems.
yeah,
Them's
well,
tough.
and then think about it, Gary, and then you well, your clients are paying that bill,
Hmm.
but do you really need to monitor in real time if Qualys.conf has been changed or not? Um,
Right.
like that's where a lot of this that's where the whole that's where the compliance and engineering meet is what so that's where so when I say what actually needs to be automated, that's where I'm going with it.
So
Like,
so let me expand on that with two things, right?
mhm,
So one is, all right, cool, the service is running,
mhm,
right? But is it working? That's
yes,
the second part of that, right? So, you really need to and the problem is you don't really realize that until you actually start monitoring whether or not that service is running. So that's like to me is the entry level in. So is the service actually functioning and am I getting results from that? So,
mhm,
like logging as an example. Everybody checks to see if, they have ingest, pipelines. Okay, I
mhm,
got my ingest pipelines. I have everything pointing at my ingest pipelines. All right, am I getting data from the right things at the kind of regular interval I expected? So, you have to put those kind of checks in place as well. This is one of the things I like to call them, which are operational security controls, not necessarily
mhm,
compliance per se, but really operational security controls to ensure that I am getting the audit logs or that service is up and operational, not just up, but
mhm,
operational, right? And then the second thing really, is okay. So now is it feeding me the right information, and is it feeding it to me often enough? And I think that's where sometimes people don't take it to that next step as well. Is it
mhm,
coming often enough, and is it coming from the right sources? Oh,
mhm.
shucks, we haven't received anything from this source in the last hour. What's going on with it? You know,
Yeah,
oh, well, there's a jam right over here. There's something jammed it up, and we got to go unclog that
yeah.
jam. So that's
Well,
why operations and security to me are go hand in hand. And then the compliance is, are you doing that stuff on a regular basis? Just because
mhm.
it's jammed up doesn't mean you're not compliant. It just means it's jammed up and you need to go get it fixed.
Well,
You
Gary,
know?
it's like ordering a pizza, right? When you order
Mhm.
pizza, the first thing you do is you peek in that pizza to make sure it's the right one,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So just
Yeah.
because I received a pizza doesn't mean that it's the right one. So let me check, like is
Hmm.
why is there like, bell peppers and anchovies on this thing? And
Right.
then
That's not what I put that's not what I put on my order, right? That's not
yep,
what so
throw an alert.
great analogy. That's a great
Yeah,
analogy, and I'm gonna steal that from you. I'm gonna use that, in the future myself because
yeah,
I think that's a lot easier to understand than what I just described took me 5 minutes.
yeah. Well, no, but fundamentally though, I think that's like look, obviously you're much higher up in your organization, right? Like, I'm pretty high up in my organization, but a lot of the people that we have to deal with aren't necessarily like technical folks. And we're having to explain compliance to them and the
Yes.
security side of that compliance. And so we need to be able to explain, like, yeah, like the reason why you're spending, $20 more a month on Lambda functions is because, we need to make sure that it's the right pizza.
Yep.
Um,
Exactly. Yep.
we,
And
we, we,
and,
we
I
have to
might
do
be
that.
I might be high up in my organization, but I still do code a little bit here and there, so
Listen, so I actually, so apparently I did a CPIR test last week with one of my
Mhm.
clients, and apparently everybody liked it so much that they decided that this is the new way that we're doing CPIR testing. And so I actually went ahead and I made like a bash script to basically run through. I set up, here's a bunch of like essentially scenarios that can happen on this it's a utility server. It can nobody's going to miss it if it's down for 20
Throw
minutes,
some
right?
chaos monkey stuff at it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, throw some chaos monkey, screw up some permissions, turn some stuff on,
Yep.
turn some stuff off, and it basically just kind of like it says pick 3 of these and execute them, right?
Right.
And so like I put that together the last 2 days, and then essentially I come in and I basically am like game mastering this scenario. So I pick one of my engineers. It's one of them is always I tell them you're fired, and then they run the script.
There you
Is basically what happens, right? So that's that. We're simulating a malicious insider who had system access. Here's what they did. We check to make sure that the audit logs are, like doing what they're supposed to do. We investigate to see if we can attribute it to the person.
go.
Then we essentially we just restore from backup because that's also a control requirement. Make sure your backups are
Yep.
valid. Like that's just kind of how we do it. That's the last script that I wrote. And before that, it was Wazoo FIM rules.
There you go.
So
So I write Terraform, and I write Python, and
mhm.
I do some Angular as well. So
Nice.
I love it. It's not what I do for my full-time job, but it's something I kind of do on the side. Like, let me go. I do a lot of POCs, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
This is what I want to see, guys. Now make it pretty and make it work.
Listen, that's what I did this morning. I took my script and I was like, guys, I don't know if this is gonna work, but
Right.
this is kind of like half of this is from like Copilot. I don't even know I've never used some of this bash before. Like I was like, here's the parts that I know are gonna work. Here's the parts that
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
Right. Right.
Surprise, guys. And but again, that's why I like having the engineers that I have.
But I
They're
think that for me, that's why I love doing what I do, is because I can do those kinds of things. And I really think that the industry that we're in, the leaders need to be fairly technical as well. And so they
yes.
can understand the art of the possibility, right? That's kind of one of the things I always like to say is, trying to figure out, what can we do? What can't we do? And to me, what can't we do is always just as important as what can we do. So,
Yes.
in the last remaining time that we have, what I'd like to really talk about here is what do you think about, where do you see that where the FedRAMP kind of program, or this compliance program is going to be headed, say the next 3 years? I won't say anything beyond that, because to me I can't see past a year. So,
Yeah.
but 3 years. I mean, you're better than I am at this, so let's go ahead and
So what this is where I'd say I think it's going.
yeah.
And I'm gonna this is kind of a reflection of like the broader market. I
Hmm.
think that I think that we're gonna have this phase of AI solves everything, and
Hmm.
then I think that we're gonna end up pulling back from that.
Ah,
Um, it's what's happening with a lot of like engineering you see in companies that are realizing like my cloud bill is more expensive than just hiring an engineer that can do it
and the
themselves.
code's not as good.
The code's not as good. Like, listen, like when I was vibe coding my thing yesterday, like literally Claude, like I was like, Claude, make this better. And then it made some changes. And I said, Claude, make this better. And then it just reverted all the changes that it did. So I'm like, okay, you're just like running me around in a circle here. And I know enough about what I'm reading to know that that's what you're
Yep.
doing.
Mhm.
And so I think that right now we're seeing this huge push towards AI. And I think that at some point we are going to see this like agentic AI deployed on our endpoints inside of these like FedRAMP environments. And I think that it's going to start going horribly wrong. Or at least
Mm.
I hope that it does, because honestly, I think it's a terrible idea. Um, that's not the point. Like I think it's bypassing the point of a large language model. It's trying to add like in like deductive reasoning into a machine, and I don't think that that's possible. I don't think that it's a good idea either. And so I think that I think that within a year or so, I think we're gonna see kind of like a more of a, I'm gonna call it a return to sanity, where the automations like where when you send it when you send data A to a computer, you're going to receive B back, and you always
Right.
receive B. Okay, that's the difference between automation and AI, right? AI, you never know what you're going to get. You could get a recipe for flan, um, and so I think we're going to start seeing a pullback, um,
Mm.
because quite frankly. we don't have the physical infrastructure to build out enough AI capability for what everybody thinks they want it to have.
To
Like,
truly get at the reasoning piece, the system thinking piece, the critical
mhm,
thinking piece, to be able to come back
yes.
with real opinions that really mean what they should mean, you
Yeah,
know?
and just look around. Like, this is happening in my county as well. They're building a bunch of data centers, and of course, there's massive opposition to it. Whether
Yeah,
their opposition is valid or not, I'm not gonna. We're not. I don't want to get into that, obviously. But nationwide, you're seeing companies wanting to build data centers and localities pushing back and saying no. Okay,
right, right.
I think that's going to stymie the possibilities of what AI is actually going to be able to do. And at some point, we're going to go back to, your more traditional, like, here's a SOC analyst, here's automation that will help with filtering. Like, AI, instead of AI being a bipedal robot that is doing something, AI is going to be like a hammer hanging on the wall. And when you need to use it, you grab your hammer. Or there might be an AI screwdriver. You grab that screwdriver and use it when you need to. Um, I think that
Yeah,
that's what we're going to end up seeing.
see, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I have maybe just slightly better, more hope, you know? I think it's always gonna help us with the scaffolding, the
Yes.
root stuff, give me a config for X, and it's going to give me that config for X. I don't have to look it up for the latest,
Yeah.
provider or the latest language I want it in Python. Well, no, this time I want it in Rust, or this time I want it in this. And it's
Mhm.
going to be able to pull that stuff out and then hang, the scaffolding around that. So then
Yeah.
it can give you better answers,
Well,
around what you already know and what it already knows. It'll just do it faster, in my opinion. But now, if
yeah.
you say, go design me a system that does X, Y, or Z, I think that's where it's going to come into the problems. That's why we still need to have, in my opinion, which is my next question, is I think the skills that we really need to have in this future, though, is really that system thing, that going back to that system thinking up front, being
Mhm.
able to look at the entire system, what's going in, what's coming out, what's the transformation of the information, on the inside, what parameters do we need to have in order to make those translations as well. And
Yes.
and a lot of folks, I don't know what I need to come in. I don't know what my inputs are. I don't know what my output is going to be. If you don't know that, then you're never going to really be able to design, true systems. I mean, to me,
Yeah. Well,
so
take a medieval peasant from 1,000 years ago and tell them, like, here, type whatever you want to build a computer program into
right,
this terminal.
right.
And what do you think they're going to do? Like, they're gonna burn you at the stake. Um,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
like, or they're going to ask you to build a pyramid. I don't know. Like, but there's, you have to keep that. Like, that's why I say that, like, one thing that I think is really important is the concept of training our juniors to basically
Oh
be able to do our
yes,
jobs in 10 years, because
hmm,
otherwise we're going to be stuck working forever, and I want to retire. Like, I'm
yes, 100% agree.
and we have to.
I'm a firm believer
Yeah.
believer in working yourself out of a job.
Yes. And but also, if we take these juniors and we never teach them how to become seniors, or we replace them with AI, then there's going to be nobody around to fix the AI. That was literally the entire point of the movie Idiocracy, was that
Yes.
they
Yeah,
automated
I
everything,
love that movie.
and
The
then
kinda
nobody.
quote of
Yeah.
Idiocracy and
And then nobody knew how it worked. Like, the
yep.
same thing happened in Wall-E. Think about it. Remember
Yeah,
Wall-E?
yeah,
Wall-E
right,
had the
right.
same
Oh, yeah.
story, right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
we we automated ourselves out of understanding what we were managing. And
Mhm,
that's and we
mhm.
we can't do that. We have
Right.
to. If we replace all of our juniors with AI, then there will be no seniors in 20 years.
Correct.
And
Yep.
folks have to remember that and realize that. So we use it as a tool, we use it as an augment.
I
Now,
like that. I love that
in
philosophy.
in FedRAMP world, this is what I'll say, Gary. I think that the next consolidated rule set is what I'm the most looking forward to, because I want to see how radical the 20x push continues and how deep it goes. Like we were talking about earlier, does it go into the IAS level? Does it go into the IL levels? Like, is Waterman able to beat the DoD over the head with his, like, M2413 stick until they accept his vision of what FedRAMP is going to mean?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I would like, now, I will say, and I like the concept of 20x, but I also think that Rev 5 has its place. And I kind of like the structure how it is, where your SaaS apps go 20x, and everything, your IAS, your PaaS, that has to stick with Rev 5. I don't have an
Can,
issue there.
can I add one flavor to that though? The one thing that I think that doesn't create the competitive marketplace is that need for that sponsorship.
Yes.
Right. So that if they decide they want to do it that way, then in my opinion, they've really got to carry that part through as well. Like the old jab used to be, that to give people the possibility, because this is a catch-22, right?
I know.
You see it every single day out there in the marketplace. That part has to stick. So now that I have something, guess what? Now I can go sell it. Hopefully you building your pipeline up the entire time. But a lot of proposals and RFPs come out and say, if you're not FedRAMP moderate or FedRAMP high, guess what? You can't bid on this.
The AO thing is always like, I'm so glad that's on. That's the thing I like the most about 20x.
Yes, 100%.
Keep the AOs out. And I hopefully what happens in the long run is that the PMO can get the funding so that they can do a lot of that, like essentially AO management.
Yep.
I said it before, like there was an RFC that the FedRAMP put out, and one of the comment about like having the PMO sponsor like ATOs. And my like comment that I sent in was basically saying like, this needs to happen, but it needs to happen for tools that are going to be useful for like the FedRAMP ecosystem.
Correct.
That can't get an agency sponsor. So like, Paramify is a really good example, right? Like no agency would ever use Paramify. They don't really have a purpose for it. Paramify is meant for the FedRAMP marketplace in general, and that's who the PMO should be sponsoring. Basically, those things that are useful for all of us with FedRAMP authorizations that like couldn't get an AO.
Right. I mean, any of us, because we have a PaaS is what we have, right, ourselves.
Yes.
So we have secure hosting, and we have SSP module, we have ticketing system, but it's really designed, for the FedRAMP ecosystem. So if you want to come host with us or pop right next to us, it's very easy, to leverage those services. But if you're not authorized, what's ended up happening is now I've built it 25 times, right? And I have to now support that 25 in 25 different places. So they're not really getting the true benefit of a cloud solution to where I could have all of it in one location and then manage it, manage all that information in one location. So.
And that's where the PMO giving authorizations would accelerate the FedRAMP marketplace as a whole.
Yes.
And that's one thing, like if Waterman is watching, hopefully he does. That's what he needs to do. I expect LinkedIn.
I think he listens. He says he listens on his workouts. So.
Oh, good. Phew.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's my like. We need that. We need the PMO needs to be focused on expanding the FedRAMP marketplace, and then we get rid of the agency. We get rid of agency sponsorship, and so that now when an agency wants to use the product, then they become one of the they sign on. They each agency gives it its ATO. That part of it is fine, but the part of your FedRAMP like certified now, no agency should be involved in that aspect of it.
Correct. 100% agree with that. And I'd like to see it kind of continue and expand in that way. So, all right. So, real quick, how about any questions for me? I've been peppering you with questions. Do you have anything for myself that I could answer for you?
So I do have one, Gary, and I you might know where I'm going with this. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So I'm wondering about. I want to hear the background on the logo and the knight and the armor.
No, you don't.
I'm just saying, look, all right, Secret Renfest, like if that's the case, like I can forgive you.
No, let's just say, how can I explain this real quick? I'll do it real quick. So, I'm a DIYer. We're privately funded. Everything that we do out of our own pocket, right? So I designed the first logo, which was the little circle, which you probably not even aware of, right? I actually loved it because it was infusion points. We integrate or infuse cybersecurity at every point in the life cycle. That's what it was. It was an oval with that, right? So I hired a whole bunch of new guys. They came on. They're like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. We want to do something new. So I said, okay, let's do something new. So the knight, which is over here. I don't know if you can point the camera over there real quick. So the knight, I actually purchased at a local. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Just go ahead. There you go. You got to turn it. There you go. A little bit more lower.
There's the guy. That's who I'm talking about.
There you go. So I purchased him at a local store, and they were going out of business. and I paid X amount of dollars for it. Can't remember exactly how many dollars I paid for it. And I was like, this is what I want my logo to be. We're going to be the defenders of everything, right? So when the guys came up and they came up with the first logo, it was this really wimpy looking knight. And I was like, I don't like it. I want something like 300. I want something like 300, the Spartans, so then there you go. It ended up being the Spartans. So that's how we ended up with a mask and a shield. So they don't exactly match anymore, but that was what the plan was. And we're actually going through a rebranding right now as well.
Can we get a sneak peek, Gary?
Can't do a sneak preview yet. But I will say that it might have some orange in it. How's that sound? Just a little bit, a little flavor of orange. I think that'll be fine.
Listen, my whole house is painted bright yellow inside, so I'm all about the pop.
I was looking to see if I had my orange shoes on today. I usually wear orange shoes, but I got a really bad stain on my orange shoes yesterday when I was walking. So they're in the wash. I got my blue shoes on today. So, but no, thank you for that. And we really do live in our minds like Spartans. I mean, everything that we do is all about the Spartans and the 300. Thinking about the few protecting the many is kind of what we say, and it is kind of important to us. So the Spartan theme will continue. So I'll
Nice.
keep it at that. It's just the logo will change probably sometime in the fall. We were going to try to do it in the June timeframe, but here again, to being a DIY company, it's hard to get everything prioritized, if that makes sense. So
I totally get it. Listen, I'm glad that if I ever have to do a rebranding, one of my juniors does all the artistic stuff. I can't tell you how many times, Gary, I've been like, hey, here's a document, make it look pretty. And then what it comes back is nothing like what I made.
Exactly.
I have this
I'm a stick person drawer, so that definitely makes it a little tough. So
one of them called my style brutalist, and I had to look up what brutalist meant, and then I see I was all these Soviet block apartments, and I was like, yeah, that is my aesthetic. My bad.
Yeah, no, I try, but I can't. I'm not an artist at all. I do woodworking, but that's about it. So anyway, let me ask you, if you don't mind, if I just ask you 3 personal questions, not really that personal. So just what kind of books do you like, or what kind of books do you recommend? Most recently read, or
I can go grab those for you. I got them sitting right here. So Dune Saga, all of them. Okay, I have all 19 of them up here.
Wow!
Highly recommend.
Oh my gosh!
Wow. So what I'm reading right now, though, there's this book series called West of Eden by Harry Harrison, and so it's what if the dinosaurs never went extinct and actually evolved side by side with mammals? And I read the first book as a kid, and then when I was looking around at a bookstore, I saw that it was actually a trilogy, so I had to get all of them, and so now I'm rereading them.
Cool.
But I'm a big science fiction, especially old school science fiction, the Asimovs, Frank Herbert's.
There you go. Me too.
Yeah, it's my preference.
I like horrors and pandemic and end of the world books and movies as well. So how about movies, TV shows? For yourself.
Oh boy, so hands down, Stargate, definitely my favorite TV show of all time.
Movie too.
Movie's okay. I listen. James Spader and Kurt Russell are amazing, but MacGyver and Michael Shanks
All right, they definitely knocked it out of the park for sure.
Exactly. Been one of my favorite shows for a really long time. Of course, I've watched Star Trek God knows how many times at this point. I will say Star Trek Voyager is better than Deep Space Nine. I don't come at me.
I was never a big fan of Deep Space Nine. I do like Voyager as well. I like moving as opposed to staying on the edge.
Well,
so
with Deep Space Nine, it wasn't good when I first watched it. When it came out, it was boring because I was a kid.
Right.
And then when I tried to watch it in my 20s, it was also really boring. And now it all kind of makes a lot more sense. So watching it in your slightly later years is more entertaining, but still,
maybe I'll go back and I've been going back through different shows for Star Trek and watching them here recently because of the new shows. Okay, I will. I've looked at it a couple times.
Yeah. And right now, what I'm watching right now is Farscape, if you
Oh yeah,
remember
that was.
that one.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, I loved
Yeah,
it.
I
So.
think I'm gonna start incorporating all of their curse words into more of my normal like vernacular, like Frel and Dren and
Oh yeah,
but
maybe that's what I need to do because I
yeah,
was ready. I was doing the Frel one earlier today, and I had a
yes,
few people laughing at me, but I wasn't saying Frel.
yes, exactly. Like it's entertaining. It's unhinged. It's a little off the wall. So
Yeah,
but big just like my books, I like my TV shows a little older too.
there you go. There you go. All right, so we're also kind of a give back organization. We do lots of support to local nonprofit agencies and things like that. Do you do anything like that
Mhm.
that you want to give a shout out to?
So probably the biggest one, there's one in my area. It's kind of like a conglomeration of the Goodwill in our area works with an organization called Platoon 22, which
Hmm.
is focused on essentially veteran assistance. One
Okay.
of the things
Mhm.
they did very recently is they were able to put in their own like halfway house. They bought
Ah,
like an old hotel, remodeled it, and they're able to give people like places to stay, beds, especially while they're waiting for like help through the VA or through some sort of like inpatient program. Some folks just stay there the whole time because their needs are not as severe. And so they've been doing good work for a really long time, and I'm happy to support them.
good, good. We do a lot for what we call the child abuse prevention team down here
Oh, mhm,
in North Carolina, and then we also do with the Special Olympics. My
mhm,
son has Down syndrome, so we stay very heavily involved in that community with group
mhm.
homes and all that as well. Then we have some folks here who are rescue people. They like to save
Oh yeah.
animals. Quite a few of them are rescue people here.
It's National Rescue Dog Day, so I'm
Oh,
just
well,
gonna
there
put a
you
plug
go.
in. Actually, it won't. This won't come out today, but
Right,
it
right.
it, it still matters, guys.
There you
Every
go.
day should be National Rescue Dog Day.
And that's Caitlin. If
Nice.
you didn't know who Caitlin was,
Yes.
That's Caitlin,
The
who
the voice
is
behind the
our big,
camera. Mhm.
who's our big kind of dog person here. I was walked by our house the other day, and it's near the trail. It's near the trail that I always walk on. It's really beautiful about living where we
Mhm.
live is you can walk pretty much anywhere and not worry too much about getting run over. But I really got worried at one point that all the dogs barking at our house were going to come down the hill and come after me. So I texted her and said, "So what's going on at your house today?" Yeah. She's
We
like,
have 4.
"They have 4 rescues."
Foster fails.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Nice.
So
I just have chickens, as my
Uh,
LinkedIn profile shows. But I have my flock is full. I don't have
Same.
space for any more. Chicken math is a killer. I started out with like 6, and now I have
right.
23.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And I
That's a
think,
lot of eggs.
listen, yeah, I have the little egg sign, up. So if you're ever in the Frederick, Maryland area and anybody needs some chicken eggs, like please, like
That's in
just
Western
shoot
Maryland,
them in.
right? That's in Western Maryland.
It's like northwest of DC, yeah. So
Oh,
it
okay.
used to be a lot more remote, let's just say that, and now it's gotten pretty built up. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Out 70, right?
yeah,
Out
yeah.
70. Got it. Got it. I grew up in Cecil County, so
Okay, yeah, yeah.
you know
Out
where that's at.
70,
That's
yeah,
the northeast corner of Maryland.
over by
So
the Conowingo Dam.
there you go.
Yep,
There you go. Yeah, my sister lives in Conowingo. So,
yep. Nice,
well,
nice.
Eric, this was it was an absolute pleasure, and I hopefully you enjoyed it as well.
Of course. Listen,
Yeah,
Gary, would I go down to Boone next time with the trailer and everything? Like, we're gonna do like an
come on,
in-person
man. We're
chat,
right.
okay? Like that's
We're 30 minutes. We're 30 or 40 minutes away from Boone. Matter of fact, usually have to go through Wilkes to get
mhm,
to Boone, depending on how you go. If you go down 77 and you cut across 421, there you go. We're right there on
exactly. Like
421.
I'll let you know. I'll come down. I gotta see the data center at least, or
There
your
you
one
go.
VM that's left.
So we've actually gotten rid of most of the racks. I think I might
Mhm.
have 6 left. So, well,
Nice, nice.
thank you very much for your time. That was
Of course.
another episode of Behind the Shield. You might not always find me at Behind the Shield, but you'll always find somebody from Infusion Points behind the shield. Thank you very much, and peace out.